We often wonder in silence, why did this happen to me? In times of blessing, pride quietly enters, and we forget that every joy and trial is part of a greater story. In times of struggle, we forget that only time reveals what is truly good or bad. Maybe you're carrying a burden now, or perhaps living in comfort without thought of tomorrow. Wherever you are, this tale is a gentle mirror, an invitation to see life differently. So, listen with an open heart. At the edge of a green hill, near the embrace of a thick forest, there was once a small village. In that village lived a simple man, Mr. Aaron. He was in his middle years, a man with lines of work etched into his face. His life was modest, money always scarce, yet he carried a rare gift. He was content. To him, 2 meals a day was enough to call it a blessing. Unlike many, Aaron never complained. On his little piece of land, he worked from sunrise to sunset, hands hardened by soil and seasons. Helping him was his only son, David, and a strong white horse named Magnus. But Magnus was no ordinary horse. His eyes shone with sharpness, his steps were quick, and his loyalty was unshakable. To Aaron and David, Magnus was not just an animal, he was family. One day, word of Magnus's beauty and skill traveled beyond the hills. A wealthy merchant from the city, Mr. Stone, came with his son to see him. The moment he laid eyes on the horse, he was struck with awe. He offered Aaron a fortune, more money than the family had ever seen. The villagers watched closely, waiting for Aaron's answer. But to everyone's surprise, Aaron smiled gently and refused. "Magnus is part of us," he said softly. "No amount of gold can replace him." The villagers shook their heads, whispering to one another, "What a fool! He turned down such riches." Some laughed, others pitied him. "Aaron is crazy," they said. "This poor man could have changed his life, but he chose to remain in rags." Then, as if fate wanted to test his resolve, something happened. A few days later, Magnus was gone. The stable was empty. Aaron and David searched from dawn until dusk, calling his name, scouring the fields and forest paths. But Magnus had vanished. The villagers found new reason to gossip. "See? He didn't deserve such a treasure," they sneered. Even the horse abandoned him. Some even claimed, "Stone's men must have stolen him." David's young heart broke. That evening, he asked his father, "Why are you so calm? We've lost something so precious. Why don't you look upset?" Aaron placed a steady hand on his son's shoulder and smiled faintly. "My son, in every loss, there is both good and bad. Time will tell. Don't be troubled now." But David could not understand. He thought perhaps his father was hiding his grief, burying his pain in silence. Still, Aaron's calmness stood like an unmoved tree against the storm. And then, just a few days later, the unexpected arrived. One morning, as they worked the fields, a familiar sound broke the silence, the powerful gallop of hooves. David turned, his eyes widening. Magnus was there, running back home. But he was not alone. Behind him followed 5 wild horses, their manes untamed, their bodies fierce and strong. The villagers, who had laughed before, now gasped in awe. "Aaron is so lucky," they exclaimed. "What fortune! First he lost a horse, and now he has gained 5 more." Aaron only smiled once again. Perhaps Magnus went into the forest to find his herd, and now he has returned with them. His voice was calm, his spirit unchanged. No pride, no excitement, only peace. David began working with the wild horses, feeding them, training them, teaching them to carry loads and accept riders. Each day, he poured his energy into taming their strength, but fate, once again, shifted its winds. One afternoon, a wild horse threw him to the ground. His leg twisted, and the pain was unbearable. the bone had broken. The villagers whispered again, "See? These horses have brought nothing but trouble. Aaron is cursed. He brought this upon himself." Lying in pain, David cried, "Father, this time it truly is bad. I can't walk. My leg is ruined." Aaron sat beside him, his expression still calm, and said gently, "Son, good or bad cannot be judged in a single moment. Time will reveal the truth. Be patient." David closed his eyes, unable to accept it. The pain clouded his heart, drowning his father's wisdom. And yet, the story was far from over. The days passed slowly, heavy with David's pain. He lay on his bed, listening to the sounds of the village outside, the laughter of children, the chatter of neighbors, the footsteps of men heading to work. His leg throbbed, and his heart ached with frustration. "Why me?" he often thought. "Why must I suffer while others walk freely?" But life, as his father always said, holds secrets that only time reveals. Just 1 week later, the village was shaken by dark news. War had broken out in the land. Soldiers came, marching with stern faces, knocking on every door. Every young man was taken from the village. Every son, every brother, called to fight in battles far away. Mothers wept. Fathers clutched their heads in despair. The air was filled with fear. When the soldiers came to Aaron's home, they saw David lying there, his leg bound and broken. They left without him. And so it was. The injury that seemed like a curse became his shield. While other families cried for the sons they lost, Aaron and David sat together in their humble home. The echoes of grief from the village were endless, yet in their house, there was still the sound of life, of gratitude. Villagers came to Aaron, tears streaming down their faces. "You are so lucky," they said, their voices trembling. "Our sons are gone, but your son is safe." Aaron placed a hand on David's shoulder, his eyes calm, filled with a quiet peace. "Do you see now, my son? When Magnus disappeared, we thought it was misfortune, but he returned, bringing more with him. When your leg broke, you believed it was a disaster, yet it spared your life. What happens in life is never simple. We cannot judge the story from a single page." David listened, his heart softening. For the first time, he began to see the truth his father carried. He saw that life was not a straight line of blessings or curses, but a river, winding and shifting, where every bend revealed something new. Aaron leaned closer and said softly, "That is why, my child, when something good happens, don't be carried away with pride. And when something painful comes, don't let it break you. Everything belongs to time. Everything is part of God's plan." David closed his eyes, breathing in the wisdom of those words. The pain in his leg remained, but his spirit grew lighter, as if a burden had lifted. He realized that his father's calmness was not the absence of feeling, but the presence of faith. The days turned to weeks, the weeks into months. The war raged far away, yet Aaron and David continued to work their land, with Magnus and the wild horses helping them. Life was still modest, still marked by hardship, but it was also filled with peace. Because now, David understood, and the lesson they carried is the same lesson for us. What seems good today may hold sorrow tomorrow. What feels like loss may be a hidden blessing. We cannot see the whole picture now, but one day, when the story unfolds, we will understand. So, when joy comes, embrace it gently, without arrogance. When sorrow arrives, hold steady, without despair, because both are travelers, passing through. Everything happens for a reason. Perhaps you too are facing something that feels unfair, something that doesn't make sense. Trust that time will reveal its meaning. Trust that there is balance. Be patient, be thankful, and keep your faith alive. For in the end, both joy and sorrow will pass, and only the strength of your heart will remain.